Hey guys, how's it going? Haven't done a tutorial since like later 2023, so it's been, what is it, a year and a half? A little over a year and a half, I think, since I've done any kind of tutorial video. And today's video is going to show how to use the machine video editor PyTorch trainer created by username JesterX in Discord. And basically, what it allows you to do is train Deepfake's kind of like Deepface Lab. It's kind of like an evolution of Deepface Lab, but it is its own program. And you also will still need to use regular Deepface Lab in conjunction with this program. Also, like so you can use Deepface Live. You can make like videos like I do on my YouTube channel. So like if you want to swap in a person into a video, you can use the PyTorch trainer for that. And then also, like I said, you have to still use Deepface Lab along with it. Or if you want to make DFM files to use in Deepface Live, you can again create those in the PyTorch trainer. But once again, you will need Deepface Lab at least for portions of the process. So I've included all the files you're going to need, and we'll go over that in a second. But basically, welcome to the PyTorch trainer tutorial. Hopefully this will be beneficial to everybody that watches it, and maybe we can make a little money for Mr. Jester X for his efforts in developing this, because there is a paid version and a free version. We're going to test the free version today. The paid version has a fairly steep price tag attached to it, but once you've made a purchase, it kind of unlocks all functionality of the software and allows you to go basically unlimited with resolution and things like that, which are locked out a little bit in the free version. So stand by, we'll get started here in just a second. All right, so this is my Google Drive here, which I will be supplying a link to this main folder, the 2025 Torch Trainer Files folder. And inside, we've got some different things. I've included a demo face set of Keanu Reeves because that's who I'm going to mess around with today. I know I've done stuff with him in the past, but I didn't feel like building another face set from scratch. Basically, my reasoning for that is, like, if I demo, one thing I've done it in the past, like I've got other videos that show how to make a face set with Deepface Lab. The process for that hasn't really changed, so if there's confusion, you can refer to one of the previous tutorials, like the 2023 tutorial covers that pretty well, or you can ask questions in the comment section. But basically, Deepface Lab hasn't changed much. Basically, the only difference is getting it compatible, like with the RTX 5000 series of cards. So this is the RTX 5000 Deepface Lab edition. It was not made by the original developer. It was updated by user. His name is Moorz. It's Morez, another user from the Discord server. Who supplied that, and it basically just updates it so it will now work with the RTX 5000 series. When it came out, or I should say when the 5000 series cards came out, it didn't work with like the older versions, like the RTX 3000 series, because of updates to the CUDA and CUDA neural network libraries from NVIDIA. Like, for example, the RTX 5090 requires CUDA 12.8 or newer to function, and the older versions of Deepface Lab didn't have that. They had like, what was it, like 9.8 or something. And I kind of fudged with them a little bit myself and kind of got it working, but it wasn't working very well. The version that he has supplied works pretty well. And I updated that also with some of Jester's files from what they call the MVE fork. So it has some better functionality than like the basic vanilla Deepface Lab. And it should work with RTX 3000, 4000, and 5000 series cards. I don't believe that there is any support for anything going forward for AMD, except for like in Linux, which obviously I'm not screwing with on today's video. So AMD users, I'm sorry, but you're kind of out of luck for this video. There isn't any AMD support for the PyTorch trainer at all. I did try to get Jester to do that because I have some AMD cards that I would like to use. And because he doesn't have any AMD cards of his own, he has no way to test it while he develops it. And he said it wasn't worth trying to figure it out because you'd have to keep sending things to me, and then I'd have to report bugs back, and that would be a lot of uploading and downloading and messing around and trying to get things to work, and it wasn't worth it to him. Plus, AMD users are kind of a small percentage of the people who are doing this kind of thing, so he just wasn't going to screw with it. So we've got the RTX 5000 version of Deepfake Lab that will work with 3, 4000, and 5000 series cards. So as long as you have an RTX 3000 or newer, you should be able to utilize this. I don't know for sure, but I don't think it will work with the old RTX like 20 series cards or older. So again, anybody with like a 2080 Ti or like an old GTX, like let's just say 1080 or 1660 or something, probably will not be able to use this software. And again, there's nothing I can do about it. It's just the time marches on, and some of those cards are kind of legacy at this point, and so they're not being supported anymore. People aren't updating the software for it. You can try it. Let me know if it works in the comments, but currently I don't think that those older cards will work. What else do we have? So we've got, like I say, the RTX 5000 series. We've got the PyTorch build software here. So I've kind of pre-set it up. So all you have to do is download it and just kind of use it. When you download it from his Discord page, it's done in separate downloads. And I'm not sure if I'm missing it somewhere on his page, but it doesn't even include like the batch files that are necessary to run the software. So I must be missing it somewhere. I got those back when he first started beta testing the software, and so I can use it, but I feel like there must be a download link somewhere I don't see on his Discord page. So I've included all the stuff you're going to need. It should be fine. I've already messed around with it before I uploaded it. It definitely should be working. But if you have a problem, of course, we'll find out. So you've got your PyTorch build here. What else did I include? Some Xseg model files. For like what I'm going to do in the video today, you really won't even need Xseg because, again, I'm going to be working with face sets that are already made. But if you make your own face set from scratch, this is just the most recent Xseg files that I have on hand. But my Keanu Reeves face set is already Xsegged and done. I made some new RTM face sets to train against for the fun of it for making DFM files. So I've got the mini RTM that I supplied in the 2023 tutorial. So that's here again. And then I made one with just men and one with just women. The male one is kind of small on images. It's only about like 2,000 images. It seems like it works reasonably well. I'll probably test that on this video. We'll see how the results come out. And then the female version is like 11,000, just because I put in a bunch of there's this gal that's making all these crazy faces. In like the last video I did where I tested the Jennifer Aniston DFM, I added some of that video to this face set, excuse me, because she does make a lot of funny, crazy faces, and she's doing stuff like that. And so I thought it would be good to train against that. So I added that to it. But mostly they're made up of like a bunch of images from face sets that I already have. So like I have like Al Pacino in here, George Clooney, Idris Elba, a bunch of different guys that are kind of mixed in, Arnold Schwarzenegger, of course. And I kind of just grabbed like a snippet of images from various angles from each of those face sets and kind of compiled it all into one face set. And so the same thing with the female RTM. It's mostly characters I've already done before, kind of mishmashed into one thing. But these are destination face sets to train against to make a DFM file. Then I have, like I say, Keanu Reeves will be our source in this one. But if you want to make your own face set, obviously you're more than welcome to do that. Make your own celebrity character. This is just someone to play with. And then what else do we have? We have in the last tutorial I did, I supplied the 224 RTT model files. This is one that's been updated by another user in Discord. It's still 224 resolution. The reason I'm doing still 224 for the sake of this demo is, one, I can train it really fast on the 5090. I could probably do this video in a day, so that's nice. And two, depending on the video cards that people who are going to use this have, I don't know what, for example, like an RTX 4070 only has 12 gigs of VRAM, I think. The PyTorch trainer is way more efficient than regular Deepfake Lab, so you get more bang for your buck for your VRAM, but still, there's people that are going to have probably 8 gig cards that are doing this, and 224 will run fine on that. But if you go much higher than that, there would be a lot of people that would be locked out of playing around with this software. If I was trying, offering a higher res model, you can play with higher res models on your own, or we can get people links to some higher res kind of pre-trained stuff if they want to play with it. But the 224, this from a user named Rumateus or Ramatis, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but it's like 20 million iterations of training that are already on this, so it should train very fast and give you a pretty good result without having to put a lot of effort into it. And finally, I have So this is the DirectX 12 version of Deepfake Live. For some reason, the NVIDIA version, well, for one thing, it doesn't have CUDA 12.8. So again, it wouldn't work with the RTX 5000 series cards. And when I tried using the DirectX 12 version originally, it worked, but like the colors on the face were getting all screwed up. And another user in Discord, username is WorldX, ran there's a program called Cursor AI that lets you kind of update programs with it. He kind of fiddled with it. He got it first of all to support the RTX 5000 series cards, so it works with that now. Secondarily, when you make DFM files from the PyTorch build, especially I think once they get to like 448 resolution or higher, there's like a bunch of, because anything above 2 gigabytes I think is where the problem starts to arise. It gives you a bunch of files along with the DFM file, and they all have to be in the main folder of the DFM folder for it to read from it. With the update that he made to it, it allows it to read from like a folder instead of like dumping all those folders. I'll have to explain it later, but basically, like you'll end up with, actually I probably can show you guys real quick what I'm talking about. So like DFM, yeah, there it is. So like these ones here, for example, like Emma Stone, you can see there's the main DFM file, and then there's all these model decoder blocks and so forth, and intermediate dimension blocks and so forth, that these extra files that come with it. So instead of putting all of these into the DFM, like just loosely having them sit in this folder, you can make a folder named Emma Stone, put all of them into that folder, and then it can read just from that folder. So you don't, it just keeps it from being quite so messy. So that update is a part of this as well. So you have pretty much the best of the latest software that's available for all these things here. We'll start playing around with it here in a second, and I can show you guys how the PyTorch trainer works. It's not super complicated any more than Deepfake Lab is. So from that perspective, you know, there'll be a learning curve, but it's not crazy. And there's a lot of features about it that I really like that make it so you don't even have to stop training for most of the time. So give me 1 second here, and we'll start going over all this good stuff. All right, so I've already downloaded all this stuff ahead of time because I'm the one that uploaded it, so I didn't need to download it again. But we've got all of our different files downloaded here, and I've got my PyTorch build already extracted out. I've got my RTX 5000 Deepfake Lab folders. So this is the 224 RTT files. He named it UTD 224, which it should be UDT, so that's a typo. But first of all, you don't need the GAN files that come with it. I would just delete those because the old legacy GAN files from Deepfake Lab are not compatible with the PyTorch trainer. It creates its own files that are named differently, so we have to just delete those. And no, you can't just rename them. It's just a totally different file type, so we have to forget that. So this is the RTT model files. Like I say, this is the Deepfake Lab RTX 5000. I'll show you a little bit of the difference here. So before, there was like a CUDA and a CUDN, like CUDA neural network folder. Now they've become just CUDA X, and he's got all the different dynamic link libraries are mixed into, yeah, so Mark Orez, or like say Morez is the username he goes by, but this is his update that he did here just about a month and a half, 2 months ago. And it's been very helpful that he did that. Like I say previously, it was a heck of a time to get this to even work with the RTX 5000 cards. And when it did, it was usually kind of slow. Now it's reasonably fast. It's still not as fast as the PyTorch trainer, but if you wanted to use the legacy one, and just for like our purposes, which is messing around, like if you want to make a face set or whatever, it's nice to have it. So we've got that. We've got the PyTorch build here, which is a pretty different layout. And then we've got, like I say, our model files and whatnot. So first off, what I'm going to do is, if we want to train, like I said, DFM file of Keanu Reeves here, I think I've got to, yeah. So one thing about the PyTorch build is it doesn't work with files that are in this FaceSet pack file format. So they have to be loose image files. That's a bit of an annoyance, but it's not the end of the world. So I'm going to take that, and I'm going to put it into my workspace for the Deepfake Lab, and I'm going to call this data, underscore source. So now we've got data source aligned in our FaceSet pack, and I'm going to unpack that. So this is the data source utility face set unpack. I'll run that, and it should do that for me. Pretty quickly. Now the upside to doing this is I think it does actually improve the quality, because the pack file format or zip file, because you can actually do that either way with Deepfake Lab. You can do a pack file or a zip file. Like it compresses the files and you lose quality. In this sense, they come out and they are uncompressed, and thus I think you do get better quality in your DFMs and other purposes. So here's our Keanu Reeves face set that I made many moons ago. Primarily was made with the Matrix movies. I do have some Constantine in here, and what was it? Devil's Advocate, a little bit of that. So pretty good sized face set, almost 42,000 images. So I've got that in there, and I think that was all I needed for that. Like I said, we're going to use the male RTM. I've already got that. I guess it was more like 3,000 images, so I've got about 2,928, and I've got some Al Pacino in there, Arnold, more Arnold, Mr. Rogers, George Clooney, Anthony Hopkins, McAvoy, different pictures where he's making kind of crazy facial expressions. So anyway, lots of Jim Carrey, of course, because he's kind of wild and crazy. Fassbender's in there. Some more Jim Carrey, I guess. Yeah, Idris Elba from Prometheus, a little Sean Bean, and a little Patrick Stewart. Just some different stuff in there. So we've got that. We've got our Keanu, and then we've got our model files. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the PyTorch build folder. And as you can see, we've got a workspace kind of like Deepfake Lab, and it has an environment folder and the torch trainer folder. You shouldn't need to mess with these. They're kind of done already. It says activate. I don't know that you actually have to run that, because it seems like it does it anyway when you first tell you want to train something. But basically you've got export amp, export amp config. So depending on what kind of model you're doing, if you're doing an SAEHD model, you'll use export SAHD config. If you're doing AMP, you'll do the AMP config exporter. Then you've got export DF live batch files, which again, if you have an AMP or an SAHD model, depending on which one you do, and you want to export your DFM file, you can do it using one of these. You can also do it while the program is running, which is very cool. And I'll show you guys that. That's what I usually do, is just do it while it's running. These simple merge don't really do anything of value. That's why we still have to use Deepfake Lab if you want to make a video. It's like you can test it and kind of see how it looks using these, but it's not super useful. Training, of course, you got your train SAHD training amp. So again, depending on what kind of model you're going to do, we're going to do SAHD. So we'll be using a train SAEHD. And then these are kind of hard to explain. I'm not 100% sure how they work. There's a model type that I think you can actually do a growth stage 1 model in the free version, and then you can do growth stage 2 in the paid version. And kind of hard to explain because I haven't got it to work perfectly yet. And in fact, I haven't really seen anybody produce one with it that works that well. But freezing layers is something we'll get into later. And these are batch files you can use if you are trying to use a growth stage model. I probably will just do a separate video on that when I understand it better and maybe can get better results with it. But that's what those are for. You probably won't need those right now. So I'm going to go ahead and open this in a new window. Currently, there's nothing actually in there. These are just empty folders. And I'm going to add our various pieces of information into here that we're going to use. So for our source, like I said, we've got, oh yeah, I put Keanu in here, didn't I? All right, so this is just an empty folder. I'm going to delete that one and replace it with our Keanu Reeves folder. So we've got our source images of Keanu, and the DST folder is also empty. So I will put in our male RTM images, which are right here. Let's see, I'll put that in there, and I will name that data DST. And again, this video kind of assumes that you have some familiarity with Deepfake Lab anyway, and sort of are used to some of these types of folders and layouts. If you're not, I would go back to the 2023 tutorial and kind of learn more about a lot of this stuff from scratch. This is mostly just how to use the PyTorch trainer. Model folder, currently nothing in it. I'm going to put in the model folder supplied by Remeteus. And so currently we should have a data file, a decoder, an encoder, the interpolation B file, but not the interpolation AB file, which didn't come with it, because you need to delete that otherwise if you've previously used. I don't think I need any of these. Yeah, these other ones are fine, but they're not really important to what we're talking about. So we don't need xseg files for this because, again, that's only for like using it for legacy Deepfake Lab if you're making a face set or if you're doing a destination video or something. But all the face sets I've supplied are already kind of done with xseg. So that should be what I need in there. I want to tell it to export the SAEHD config. And so it says it parsed a DFL model config from the data file that was already in there. I don't need this folder open now. So I should have I have an SAEHD config file, which I didn't have before, also called a YAML file. I'm not sure what that stands for, but it's a configuration file. So you can make your initial settings in this notepad, which is cool. You just edit this, as opposed to like with Deepfake Lab, when you said like you'd have to say train SAEHD and then pick settings from the command prompt window as you went through it. And if you messed up and did one wrong, you'd have to stop and like close it out and reload it up and try again. This kind of allows you to not have that problem, which is nice. So it's reading, as you can see, LIAEUDT is the model architecture, 224 resolution, dimensions 512, 64, 64 by 32, whole face architecture, or excuse me, is the face type. And so we're going to change a few settings around here. This doesn't currently have a like an eye and mouth priority are not separate. I've asked him to do that. Hopefully he will soon, because I typically prefer just to use the mouth priority and not the eye priority. But currently we don't have those options. So I'm going to start with batch 8 because I have the VRAM to do that. But if you need to go down to 4 is fine, and it will train iterations pretty quickly. We've got eye mouth priority. I'm going to set that to true. Blur out mask, I'm going to change to true. Uniform yaw, you can leave on true. Learning rate, we can change that later from within the application itself, but we'll start with 5.0 E-05. You can change this to like 4 or 3 to make it slower, or go higher to make it faster. But currently, by faster, I just mean like it'll slow down the loss rate. Will start to come down better if you lower it, but we need to start at the default value, which should be this one. Learning rate dropout, we're going to leave on false. I'm going to change the CPU cap to 8. Depending on what CPU you're using, you can kind of fiddle with that. This is an i9 13900K in this system, and I have the efficiency core shut off because they tend to, I don't know what the deal is, but it seems like if you don't keep Deepfake Lab, or in this case the PyTorch trainer is like your primary application, it starts lagging and screwing up on efficiency cores, so I just shut them off. If you have an AMD CPU, you probably won't have that problem. I don't have that problem on my Threadripper. Clip grad means no clip mode, which helps it to not crash, so like not to collapse the model, so we'll keep that on. Keep graph, I'm not 100% sure, like that's some kind of logging feature that I'm not going to use. Loss is SSIM, you can also do like MS SSIM, but we'll just keep that for starters, or actually that's all I use now is SSIM, I don't change that. Weight decay, something to do with like how it learns. Like I say, I don't fully understand some of these things, so it's like I'm just kind of like from a technical standpoint, like I know as a user what settings to use, but some of the technical side of it is, you'd almost have to be a developer to understand what they do, I guess, or at least understand Python better, or understand some of these learning functions and algorithms better. I'm not that guy. So weight decay, I know that like setting it lower, I think again slows down training. Higher would probably make it collapse faster, but over time, like it will eventually decay and the model will croak, and that's partly why you start doing things like layer freezing later on. But for the most part, I haven't experienced a problem with that. Snapshot interval, so every 5,000 images, it's going to do an auto save. Random warp, we want to have that on true to start. I don't use random noise. Random source flip is optional. If you want to use it, like if your person has a very symmetrical face and they don't have like a mole on one side but not the other, source flip is okay in that situation, but it usually kind of makes the person not quite look 100% accurate. It's like, nobody's really a mirror. Like nobody's face is perfectly symmetrical. So I usually leave source flip off now. DST flip I will turn on. So make that true. Color augmentation just set to true. Back in regular Deepfake Lab, you used to have a bunch of options here like FS-AUG. Later it became CC-AUG, MKL, RCT, LCT, etc. IDM. So they have different kinds of color transfer modes. This just strictly has an on or an off function, but it's the latest version, which is like, I think it's either CC-AUG or something a little bit better than CC-AUG. Does a good job. I would start with it on. We'll shut it off later, but for now, start with it on. Scale range, don't fully understand what that does. Rotation range, again, that's something to do with like how far it turns the image in random warp to train it. Again, it's a technical thing that I don't fully understand, and you don't need to change it. So these things don't need to be changed at all. We're not going to start with GAN on. So the default settings, though, it gives you here are pretty close to what we'll use when we actually turn it on. We'll mess with the dimensions a bit and so forth, but we'll change that later. For now, just leave it on false. So I'll go ahead and save it. And at this point, because I have my source, my destination, and my model files ready, I should be able to tell it to start training. And what it's going to do, I guess I'll go ahead and get it started. Let's make sure it's going to work. So yeah, like I thought, like when you first tell it to activate or train first, it goes through like this end user license agreement stuff. So we're just going to kind of skip through that. Yes, I accept the end user license agreement. And it's going to start attempting to train. Hopefully it actually works with this model and doesn't flake out and I don't have to start all over again. But what it's going to do, okay, I guess it's asking me if I want to allow it access to the network. So first thing it's going to do is load up the source images, which again, there's like 42,000 of those, and it has to cache them. So currently it doesn't have that in there yet, but basically it's going to go through here and it's going to cache all the source images and then all the DST images in the model folder. So in a moment here, it should get there and we can see that it's starting to do that. Depending on what resolution the model is that you're doing this at, that can take a very long time. It's kind of annoying. I hope Jester finds a way around it. But the problem is that if it wasn't caching them, training became very CPU intensive. It has something to do with the masking of the model. And yeah, so you can see it created a face cache source. And it's only going to take it about 2 minutes to do that at 224 resolution. So that's nothing. But if you're trying to do, I tried doing models at 1024. It took like 8 hours to do like a moderate size face set because the images are huge PNG images that are uncompressed and take just a ton of space up to do it. So that's, consider your time frame when picking what resolution you're going to work with. But 224 shouldn't take that long. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a second. It'll do the DST in the same way after this, and then we can see if it kicks off successfully or not. All right, so it has completed caching the source and destination images. You can see we've got, see, like it has to make this, I don't know what a PKL file is, but it's some kind of a mask file. And again, like I said, when it's training, before it was doing this caching feature, these were somehow being constantly done kind of on the fly, and it was extremely taxing on the CPU and would make them overheat. Okay, so it's running. So it's kicked off. It's running very fast, even at batch 8. So to get a look at the training window, it's done out of your browser. So you click this local host link here with a control click, and it opens it up into a browser window. And you can see it's training, and we have kind of some of the same layout we've had in the past. Instead of hitting the P key to advance it, you can just click, and you can keep getting different training images. You can see kind of your loss values here. So the source value is pretty high right now, and so is the DST value, but it's training very fast. And obviously this model has a lot of training already. So it shouldn't take it that long to get through. And we can go to some changes on the settings. But what's great about, like I say, this is the ability to do things on the fly. So you go down here and you have a settings page, and you can see a lot of the same settings here, or the same settings actually that are in that So the same settings from the YAML file are visible in your training window. And so if I want to shut off the eye and mouth priority, I can do that right here. I can change blur mask on and off, change the learning rate, shut off random warp, change source and DST flips, shut off color augmentation, etc., etc. So the only things you can't do pretty much is like you have to stop training to enable GAN. That cannot be done while it's running. But everything else pretty much can be changed on the fly. This is you can do like a snapshot and show like saving your progress. I believe it has like in the history, yeah, like you can take and put a couple images from your source and a couple from your destination and throw them into these, and over time it will track those changes. Problem is it saves more often, I think, and then it becomes like again kind of slows down your training and taxes the CPU more again, and all that good stuff. But you can get kind of a neat tracking over time of watching it improve. But you can see we're already getting some progress here. And you can look at your different methods of training, but this is quite fast for batch 8. If it was on batch 4, it probably, and plus the fact that I'm recording is slowing it down a little bit because that taxes the CPU. So, oh, that's funny. I forgot I put that guy from Epic Rap Battles, Mr. Rogers. I made this with Kling AI. I've just took a couple pictures off the internet of Mr. Rogers, and I made my own face set of him. So that'll run for a while, and basically every 10,000 images, I think, is what it does. It will update like the loss values in the window here, and you'll be able to see, like what it was, and then like what the new value is, and it'll show you like how much it's come down. And eventually we'll get to the point where it's like only coming down by like 0.002 or something at a time, in which case we'll change the setting and go on to the next thing. So hopefully, as fast as it's training at batch 8, excuse me, and this Rumeteus 224 model file here is very well trained already. It should pretty quickly burn through this, and maybe I can even get this uploaded today or tomorrow, which would be nice. But basically, I'm going to let it go for a while, and we'll come back and check on it maybe in an hour or two and see if I'm ready to go to the next setting. And I'll do that at that time. We'll continue and knock this thing out. All right, be back later. All right, so I'm just checking on it here real quick. You can see it's already picking up pretty well here. And you can see that it's been every 10,000 iterations, it auto saves. And so you can see it, first time it saved was about 0.95 by 0.93. Second time it saved, it already dropped pretty substantially. It was down to 0.68 by 0.75. And now we're down, and it's coming down pretty heavily again. So it'll take a while, but it is going through it pretty quickly. Some other things I wanted to look at real quick was like memory usage. So, for example, the VRAM usage on this, and this is at batch 8, so keep that in mind, is it would use less memory, but it's using about 11 gigabytes right now, but it would be probably using quite a bit less, if I ran it at batch 4. So for people with an 8 gig card, you should be able to do this, or be close anyway. Going right along. Temperature like 66, that's pretty good. CPU kind of spikes around a bit. That's still seems to be a problem with my Intel chips, is they tend to run pretty hot. But what we'll do is after it quits going down on the loss, if the teeth look good, I'll shut off the eye and the mouth priority. Sorry, I gotta zoom out a little bit. I'll shut off eye and mouth priority next. We'll let it train again a little bit longer. Then I can shut off random warp. We'll let it train for a little bit. Then we'll change the learning rate. So we were talking about that earlier. It's the default is 5.0E-05. But you can change that from in here as well. See, it's represented here as a decimal, and you can just change this to like 0.03 or 0.04 or whatever, however you want to screw with it. And that's equivalent to dropping it to, like I say, doing this or doing that, doing something like that. and thus we can play around with that, but I'll drop that a little bit. We'll let that get down there. And then finally, we'll turn on learning rate dropout. We'll let that train for a while, and then we'll shut it off. We'll enable GAN. When I turn on GAN, I shut off color transfer mode. And then there'll be some other things that we got to talk about. There's something called a tensor board, which is mentioned here. And as you can see, you can export the DFM from within here. So the tensor board is something we'll look at when we get far enough along. But when you enable GAN, there's something called the loss discriminator. I forget what the other. There's two numbers you have to track to make sure that GAN doesn't collapse or get corrupted. That's one downside to doing this. The PyTorch version, like the old regular Deepfake lab, when you train GAN, you could pretty much just set it and forget it. And when it was done, it was like, hooray! I don't need to do anything else, But you could use it. You could use it on another model on another face set and keep changing out things, and it wouldn't corrupt it, or whatever. Like you keep using it indefinitely. But with the PyTorch version, you have to both. What am I talking about here? So you got to do something called freezing the layers. Like I say, these encoder layers have to be frozen, otherwise, like it'll eventually corrupt. And shutting off color transfer mode helps it preserve as well. But anyways, we'll get to that when we get to the point where we're going to get to the point where we enable GAN. But yeah, like you have to do certain things to keep it so GAN doesn't eventually corrupt and collapse itself. So anyways, progress being made. Like I said, I just wanted to jump in and mention a couple things. Like I say, the VRAM usage. I'm pretty sure at batch 4 you could run this on an 8 gig card. 12 gigs would be better. So if you have like a 4060 or a 4070 or like a 16 gig version of the 4060 Ti, I forget how much RAM. I think all the 50, like the 5070, 5080, like those all have like 16 gigs, and those would be, that'd be more than enough memory. And of course, you get 32 gigs with the 5090, which is way too much for what we're doing here, but you can definitely go quite a bit higher resolution. The other thing I forgot to mention about the free version of, I think I forgot to mention, I know I said like the resolution is capped out. 448 is as high as you can go in this version. And so, I mean, that's fine, because like I said, this is already using a pretty good amount of VRAM. For making DFM files, 448 is actually pretty high. Before, the most you could do, I want to say, would be like 512, but it was with fairly low like dimensions. But now you can do pretty much any resolution you want, so long as you have hardware that can run it. The trick is that now you got to use that new version of Deepfake Live, and like I say, it exports it as a bunch of like miniature, smaller files. I think that's kind of how we got past the limitation. The problem is that DFM is previously capped out at 2 gigabytes. There's something called the ONNX runtime that prevents you from going above 2 gigabytes in the file. And so to get around that, I think is why he made it so it spits it out in a bunch of smaller files in that big folder, like I showed you earlier with the MS Stone folder. And so each file is still, I think, smaller than 2 gigs, but the total can be, like 4 or 5 gigs, but it doesn't matter. It still works in Deepfake Live at that point. So he kind of got around the problem. Anyways, starting to get some good progress. It's already starting to look fairly sharp. I just want to make sure that the teeth look really good before I shut off IM mouth priority. As soon as I shut that off, the loss value, like they make the loss a lot higher. It just calculates it differently. But as soon as I shut those off, like this will drop down to like 0.2 by 0.2 really fast. We could probably get it down to like 0.1 or even under 0.1 before we enable GAN. And then GAN numbers are different again in this than they are in regular Deepfake Lab too. That'll be something we'll look at when we get there. But it looks like it's doing pretty good. I'll be back in a little bit. It's starting to rain here. Hopefully the power doesn't go out. I'll talk to you guys later. All right, I'm just checking in. It's been going just a few hours, but it's getting to the point where I'll probably change the settings pretty soon. You can see the loss value is pretty well petered out. Like I'll let it go a little bit longer just because I want to make sure it gets the teeth learned really well. Usually the problem what you'll have is that like the upper teeth will get learned pretty quick, but the bottom ones can kind of take a while depending on who you're working with. Like if you have Arnold Schwarzenegger or people that often, have like big toothy things going on, like smiles and grins and screaming and crazy stuff in their movies, then there's lots of representation of that in their source material, and it'll learn it faster. But some people, like it can be quite difficult, or like it'll never learn it unless you just train it and train it and train it and train it using like that tooth trainer uh face that I made quite a while back. And then it's actually kind of giving your source person like Arnold, like for example, if your source person is again, like if it was Keanu, but you were having a problem with it or something, it would be like Keanu, but he would have Arnold's teeth because it could never learn his own. So it like just eventually starts supplementing whatever it can, which is what it sees in the destination face set. So, anyways, it looks like it's doing pretty well though. You can see it's still training pretty good speed, and let's see what our temperatures are doing. Yeah, GPU is only about 65. I do have this power limited a little bit. I think it's running at like 85% of the power normally, because the 5090 uses so much power. It's like you don't want to. I don't know. I'm just trying to avoid running up my electric bills right now. Things are just getting out of hand when it comes to being expensive. So, but it's still. I mean, it'd be a marginal difference if I changed that. So I save the wattage, and the training speed doesn't change much. Also, recording in OBS does use a little bit of system resources, so it's not quite as fast as it could be. And I have NVIDIA Broadcast going because it does like noise cancellation for my microphone, because otherwise like it does get a little bit warm in here with the PCs going. And so I have some big fans in here, and the PC itself makes quite a bit of noise just because there's a lot of fans in that. So I use NVIDIA Broadcast to do like a little AI noise cancellation on the mic, and that too is taxing the GPU just slightly. So again, this is it'd probably be closer to like 100 milliseconds per iteration if I didn't have those things running. But it's marginal. So, anywho, I may leave it as it is to go overnight because, like I say, I don't want to find out tomorrow. When I shut off eye and mouth prio, that it looks like it's getting it pretty well learned. You can see some definition. Like I'll zoom in here. You can kind of see how well it's learned Patrick. So like this is the base image of Patrick, and this is how well it's learned Patrick, and then this is Keanu overlaid onto that, and you can kind of see where there's definition in the upper and lower teeth. So it's probably getting there. I just kind of want to make sure, like some of the more extreme at face expressions get learned pretty well before I start shutting off that eye and mouth priority. So I'll let it go a little bit longer. It's not quite 10 o'clock. Maybe before I go to bed, I'll shut that off or something. I'll see how it looks. I think it's probably getting there. And then you may have noticed my internet is out because we didn't have a power outage earlier, but the storm was severe enough that it did knock out the power to some of my service providers' equipment somewhere around here, and so a lot of people around here don't have internet. So even if I got this done today, I wouldn't have been able to upload it because my internet's out. So I will have to upload it when the internet's back. But I'll be back here maybe an hour or two and check on it and maybe change a setting before I go to bed. Be back in a bit. Okay, so it's now like 12:30 at night. It's still coming down by these tiny little bits, but it's really not moving too much anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and shut the eye and mouth priority off. I think it's learned probably what it's going to learn. I mean, I could leave it a bit longer, I guess, but for the most part, like it doesn't really have that super well learned. But some of these are not really well defined, and it still shows Keanu's bottom teeth pretty well there. So I think like he's got a little detail there even. So I'll go ahead and change it. So you can come in here, like I say, and you can look for your setting, eye mouth priority, turn it off, hit update, and you'll get a little message that it says now eye and mouth priority is false. And I'll go back to the little home box, and now we can watch it continue to go down from there. And you can see now the numbers are already starting to get dipped down further. When eye and mouth priority are on, loss values are calculated higher, but as soon as you shut it off, like it'll appear to be coming down. So I'm gonna leave this going overnight, and then in the morning I will probably shut off random warp and go from there. So I'll be back in the morning. All right, all right, all right. It is Sunday morning, and you can see progress is still continuing. Loss values are down to the point where they're really not moving much anymore. In fact, actually, they're kind of fluctuating up and down. If it has a negative value, that actually means it went up a little bit. So it's just kind of jumping up and down a little bit. But teeth looking pretty good. Oh, yeah. Not too bad. So the next step, I'm going to go ahead and shut off random warp. You can do it in different order. You can either shut off random warp now, or you could enable learning rate dropout now and kind of do things in reverse order. It doesn't really matter, but I'll just go ahead and shut off the random warp and hit update. Now this is going to say it's, what does it say? Yeah, reloading data loaders. So this is going to take it, I don't know, a few seconds, maybe 30 seconds or something. And then it should start going again. And my internet is still out. I'm sure hoping that they get that fixed today. But if not, I have an appointment with my service provider that's supposed to come out on Tuesday evening as the earliest. Tuesday morning was the earliest to get somebody here, but of course I'll be at work and you have to be here. So they had one at that evening. So Tuesday at 7 p.m. someone is supposed to come out. The problem really isn't with my place. Like I talked to them on the phone and they said that like the whole neighborhood is affected. So I don't know why they're screwing around, but whatever. It'll probably be fixed before then. So now it's running again, and we'll be seeing as time progresses, the loss value will start coming down again. Already actually looks pretty good in the training window, but if you made a DFM with it, you'd get some flickering and things like that going on. So we don't want that. Okay, so I'm going to let this continue on until, again, the loss values kind of quit coming down or get to the point where they're making really minuscule changes. That'll probably take an hour or two, maybe 3, but it's going pretty fast. Like I said, the training speed is quite good. And once it gets to, like I said, the next plateau, we'll make a setting change and we'll continue on from there. Be back here in a little bit. All right, we are barely coming down now, so it's got down to like 1.89, 1.9-ish, or excuse me, 0.18 and 0.19. So it's come down pretty well. It's a pretty good loss value already considering where we're at in the training steps. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the learning rate. If I can find it. Oh, there it is. Learning rate down to 3. You can go to 4 first and then 3 and then 2, etc. if you want to. I find that that's, I don't want to say unnecessary or whatever, but it doesn't really make much difference, if any. So I'm going to go ahead and update that. You'll see it says it changed learning rate from, so it was 5E05, now it's 3E05. And that will cause the loss value to continue to drop, which is what we want. As it drops, the images will get sharper, we'll get more detail, and it'll start removing any, potential problems with morphing and flickering and whatnot when our DFM is complete. So what I'll do after this is done dropping, is I will set it back to 5E05. I will enable learning rate dropout and let that train for a while, and then we'll be ready for GAN. So hopefully I can get to GAN today. Although I guess if my internet doesn't come back, it doesn't really matter anyway. So the sooner I have internet, the sooner I can upload this to the YouTubes. Looking pretty good. Say there's McAvoy, looks pretty good on that. Seems like it's doing a pretty good job with the likeness so far, at least as far as I can tell in the training window. All right, I will be back after this is ready for the next phase, probably again an hour or two. I'll be back then. All right, it's been going for a while, and as we can see, it's pretty well got to the point where it's not going to come down much more, hanging around 0.17 on source and destination respectively. So let's make a settings change again. And we're going to change the learning rate back to 5E05. And I'm going to enable, can never find it. Like, I don't know why it is, but it seems like there it is. Depending on how zoomed in I am, I can never find settings. All right, so enabling learning rate dropout and changing the learning rate back to 5E05. You can see those are now enabled. And it's continuing on. Looking pretty good. It's going to be a little bit yet. Yeah, looking pretty good. Seems to be handling everything pretty well. This is a pretty good face set for Keanu. Like I say, it's made of like 4.5 movies. All ripped from Blu-ray pretty much. All right. So we'll let this go for a little while, and again, let the loss rate go down as far as it will go. And then we should be able to enable GAN and shut off the color transfer mode in the final step. And at that point, I'll show you guys how the tensor board works. And after that, let it train for a while until GAN is hopefully done, and we can test the DFM out. So I will be back here again in probably a few hours to see how it's going. All right, it's looking like it's about as far as it's going to get. Down to about 0.15, 0.16. It's not too bad. Looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit out of this. So you just hit the exit button up here. You can also hit save if you just want to save and then let it keep going, but exiting will get us out of the application. So it says it's done. So I can just close this out. And then again, since it's running out of a browser, the tab being open doesn't hurt anything, but I'm going to close it out. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and, where am I at here? Sorry. I don't know why I didn't tell it to, I don't know what it's doing. Sorry. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and start GAN. So go into the main folder and bring back up your config file, the SAEHD config. And I'm going to change GAN from false to true. And I'm going to change that to, so both patch and DIMMs usually I run at about 64. If you run out of VRAM at that, you can try setting them to 32 by 32. The other ones, I usually change this to about 0.36 to start, and we'll see if that's good or not. Game power, you can do 0.1 or 0.01. I guess I'll start with 0.1. We'll see what happens. Really can kind of, like, 0.01 is as low as it'll go. That seems like that still works. And like, again, if you're having like VRAM issues, you can kind of set it down a little bit and free up a little bit of memory. So we got that, and I'm going to shut off the color transfer mode. So I'm going to turn color augmentation to off or false. I'm going to save it, and I'm going to let it reload back up. So the nice thing about the Torch trainer is that's the only time really, for the most part, that you've got to stop training. That says it can't connect to the update server, so I wonder if, I don't think it needs the internet for this, but like if you get the paid version and you have a license, it has to be able to check the license against the update server. This should work without that. I'm pretty sure it does. It's been running. All right, it is loading. So I'll give it a second to load up here, and then once it gets going again, we'll look at that tensor board. All right, so training's resumed. You can see it's a bit slower. When GAN is enabled, it will train a bit slower on these lower res models. On the higher resolution you go, the more it impacts the training speed. So you can see like the loss value seems to be quite a bit higher when GAN is enabled. Let's go see what it's doing. But it'll come back down. But you go down here and you freeze the encoder, which basically means the source won't learn any further, to keep it how it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and hit update. and it will say set frozen value of blocks to true, so it freezes all that stuff. And go back, and we'll just start watching it. So basically, GAN with this is not as simple as it is with regular Deepfake Lab. With regular Deepfake Lab, you can kind of, like I say, just sort of set it and forget it. With this, you have to watch these TensorBoard numbers. So I've opened TensorBoard, and the two numbers you want to watch are the values for the, so you got the loss discriminator and the loss generator. So the value here and the value here are the ones we want to watch. And we want to keep them as close to 2.5 as possible for both of them. So you don't want to get heavily out of balance. You can click up here and refresh it. And right now, they're both about 2.57, or both about 2.5, excuse me. And they'll fluctuate up and down a little bit, but right now they're pretty good. And if those settings are out of whack, like I say, if one of them is kind of too high, so like if this is too high, you want to increase GAN smoothing. If it's too low, you want to reduce GAN smoothing. You don't need to, like GAN noise, technically you can increase that to reduce the loss generator value, but I found that all you really need to do is mess with GAN smoothing. So again, right now it seems like my numbers are fine, but if I wanted to increase this value, I could drop GAN smoothing. If I wanted to lower this value, I increase GAN smoothing until, again, they're both back to where they're roughly in the same area. And like I say, they'll fluctuate up and down a little bit, but as long as they're both pretty close to 2.5, like one can be like 2.45, one can be 2.55, but as long as they're within balance with one another, that's what you want. Oh, excuse me, let me go back here. Here we go. And basically, like I say, I'm just going to let it go. Probably a couple hours, maybe upwards of overnight. But you'll start seeing, and again, for people who have used Deepfake Lab in the past, like if I zoom in here, you can kind of see, like on his lips, there's like little, striations around the lips. There's little like skin, there's skin details, little tiny stubble, I should say, on his upper lip that don't really show right now. It hasn't learned that well. As GAN appears, you'll start getting like little bumps and things will appear, and we'll see it when it happens. But eventually the idea is you'll start getting like fine details in the eyebrows, the skin details will be there, that kind of stuff. And that's what we want to see. Right now it's like without GAN, it's like it's too smooth. It kind of looks like wax, like in the final result. But when GAN is more trained, like I said, you'll get those skin details that you want to look more natural. So we'll let this go again for a while. And like I say, when I check back in a little bit, hopefully I can demonstrate what the little bumps look like. You can kind of see this here. This is just I think this is just a artifacting in the image or something, or in the training window, I guess. Yeah, they're all kind of like that. They have like a little border, but these kind of things here that you see here will kind of start appearing across the face, and sort of like little bumps or grid-like pattern will appear across his face, and that's when you know it's starting to work everywhere. So I'll let train. I'll come back here in an hour or two and we'll see how it's going. At least it trains pretty fast. That's one of the problems. Like when you start doing the higher resolution models, it's like, every iteration is like sometimes a couple seconds a piece, and it takes it forever to even get good. GAN usually takes a couple thousand iterations for it to even kind of start doing it. And so you can be waiting for a while if you're doing those higher res models. Only because I'm training this on a 5090 can we do this pretty quickly like this. There's other cards that are pretty fast as well, but it definitely takes some of the weighting out of it. So anyways, I'll be back here in a little bit, and we'll see how GAN is doing at that time. Okay, I'm back. It actually looks like GAN is kicked in pretty well already. Yeah, I'm looking for you can see it's pretty much matched up. There might be a little bit of graininess to it. Like you can kind of see, I can only zoom in so far with this. Like around the forehead area, maybe there's like a little bit of graininess going on here. Kind of some graininess through there. You can kind of see that. Little bumps and graininess. I don't know how well that's translating to the video. Yeah, it's more evident like in this image here. But it's doing pretty well. Let's see how TensorBoard looks. Still hanging around the 2.5, so that seems to be doing what we want. Excuse me. Seem to be getting a little bit of a cough going on. I don't know if it's going to get a whole lot better than this. Honestly, it looks pretty good on a lot of it. You can see on the side profile there again, like that's pretty bumpy and whatnot. So I'll probably let it continue for a little bit. So I've been going for, I don't know, hour and some change. The loss values, like it calculates it differently again with GAN. So like it went from 0.15 to like 0.5, but that's, I wouldn't worry about that too much. It's coming down, which means it's doing the right thing. Yeah, a little bit around here. Excuse me. It looks too bad, but I'll probably go a little bit longer. I might lower the GAN power a little bit and see if some of these dots clear up here soon, little bits of bumps and stuff. So I've been going for like an hour and a half, maybe. Hour and a half. I don't remember exactly when I started it, what time it was. Doesn't look bad. So I'll let it go just a little bit longer, and then we'll try exporting it. And as you can see, like I said, you can export it right out of here. And then after you export it, you can just pause. Like there's a pause button in this. Like for example, if I just want to stop right now and go do something, like that'll free up my system, and I can go do something else and then come back and just resume. And that make me look bad. There it goes. Started right back up. So I'll let it continue a little bit longer here. Yeah, so it says it started at about at a little after 6, and now it's about 7:30. So about an hour and a half, going on 2 hours. Doesn't look too bad. I will try it here in just a little bit. All right, I'll be back. All right, it's looking pretty good. I think we've got enough detail that we can try to go ahead and export our DFM. So I can go ahead and hit that button, export DFM, and you'll see it's going to spit out a bunch of gobbledygook. But once it's done doing that, it should be complete. So I'll pause and we'll go see if we got a completed DFM. So in the PyTorch build folder, you go into workspace and then model, and then it will have created this DF live folder, and it just names it however many iterations were on it. And as you can see, it gives you a DFM file. It's just named again, like whatever the name of the model files were, and underscore and how many iterations it was. So we'll just say this is a Keanu Reeves 24 full face, whatever. And so I guess what I want to do now is I want to test it in Deepfake Live. So give me just a minute here, and we'll have to set that up so we can try that. But basically, we'll have to do, where did I put that? So I have to unpack my, did I download that? I thought I downloaded that already. Let me see if I have it on my, yeah, I have it up here. I just hadn't downloaded it, I guess. I thought I downloaded that. Strange. Okay, so I need to download that. I have it in a different one of my folders anyway, come to think of it. Let me go get it off the other drive. That's all I need to do. That should be DX. Well, yeah, there you go. I'll just move it over here. But normally you would have to obviously download it and then extract it from the RAR file. All right, taking its time. All right, well, what I'm going to do is get that set up here. So give me one moment. All right, so I've got my PyTorch build folder. So I'll go back into that DF live folder. And I can just copy this whole folder over if I want. I don't have to just copy the individual DFM. So I'll just copy that. And I'm going to go over to the DX12 DF Live. I'm going to open up user data, DFM models, and paste it into there. This should work because this was modified by the user world X so it can read from folders instead of having to have this file directly in this folder. Because as I showed earlier, like that Emma Stone model and anything above 2 GB, like if we did a DFM that was like 448 or usually a much above 384, or if you set the dimensions really high, makes the file size too big, and then it will spit out all those extra files along with the DFM file. So you'll get like this file DFM and then all those, it was like weights files or whatever they were called, and you end up having to put a bunch of them in this main folder if you don't have this version of Deepfake Live that's been modified to allow it to read from directly from a folder. So I'm going to load the program up. I'll just do a file source first, and then after this I can test it with my camera, but currently the camera's in use by OBS, so I'll have to kind of screw around with that here in a minute. But we'll go ahead and we'll pick a video file. We'll just say go to samples, and this is Keanu Reeves. It doesn't really matter. We'll just try Twitch 1. This guy, well, let me see, hold on. Twitch 3, I think, is the young lady. Twitch 2, yeah, this guy kind of like alright as Keanu. And then we're going to go ahead and pick our GPU. I set this to auto usually. Pick the GPU. Let's see, I set this down to 0, up to 30, maybe. Again, for this face swap DFM, I'll pick the GPU. Stream output will be merge frame or source frame, and then hit window to bring up the little display. And then we'll pick our DFM, which it should be able to read. There's our Keanu. We've got some of these, I think, are the ones that we're on. This is the one I made, the 224 whole face. So it's reading the name of the DFM file, even though the folder is there. So I'll pick that. That should be the one that we made. And there it goes. It is working. I'll sharpen it up a little bit. Looks pretty good in the preview. I'm going to set this down to 1 delay. We're not saving that anywhere. And let's try it out a little bit. That looks pretty good, actually. For 224, it's actually quite sharp. And the frame rate, since we say real time, if I shut that off, let's see if it's faster. I guess it's about as fast as it's allowed to go on that particular video clip. But like when I use the webcam, if you have a 60 FPS webcam and you're doing only 224 models, you can hit pretty close to 60 FPS and get pretty good results. Let's try some of these other ones here. So there's Keanu. Teeth look pretty good. This is let's see, where's this at? This is this one that I did the Jennifer Aniston test on before. Let's just see how this looks. That's actually doing a pretty good job. And this was just trained on that little 3K, male RTM face set, which is not a big face set. And it seems like it's handling this very well. Of course, the face set of Keanu is quite good, so that helps, but it is doing a pretty good job getting these different facial expressions and doing some of the sillier stuff. It can't really get the tongue where it comes out of the mouth. I got to figure out how to get that to work better. I tried doing that, like the female RTM face set. I included a lot of this particular video as part of that face set because she's doing all these, crazy things, and she gets like her tongue outside of her mouth, like like this. And I tried to exseg that in a way that it should allow it to utilize that properly, but it doesn't seem like it's working quite right. That works pretty well. Here's like Bruce Almighty. It's pretty funny. All right. I'm really pretty happy with how that's working. But what I'll do next is let me reconfigure OBS so I can test this with a webcam instead, and we can see how that looks on me. And then after that, I think I'll be pretty happy with this tutorial as it is. Maybe separately, if anybody wants me to, I can demonstrate like how to use the model that we've trained here back in Deepface Lab and apply it to like a video clip. The only thing is with doing video clips is any kind of video I make of those, unless it's like just something of myself, a recording of myself, or non-celebrities or whatever, typically it gets hit for copyright and then the video can't be monetized. And so I'd rather not do that with long tutorial videos like this. So give me 1 second. I will reconfigure OBS and we'll test Deepface Live with a webcam instead of just using video files. All right, so it actually looks and runs pretty well. The frame rate is only like 20-ish, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I'm running it through like NVIDIA Broadcast. So it kind of does, like I get the background blur. I have that handling like the mic noise reduction, like I mentioned. And then OBS is capturing from that, and Deepface Live is kind of taxing in and of itself. I'm probably dealing more with like a CPU taxing issue than I am GPU here. Anything I missed? I think the settings are correct. So it's not a great frame rate, but I think it has a lot to do with it. Like I'm running a lot of things that are utilizing the GPU and not just one. Let me try changing this to Insight Face. Yeah, didn't really help the frame rate to speak of. Try setting that on this, a little bit better, maybe a couple frames. And any improvement there? Not really. About the same. Ah. Whoa. Like, I went to the supermarket and there was like nothing for sale. And so I went home and I ate what I had in the refrigerator already, which was mostly just beer. I don't think I can do a very good Keanu Reeves impersonation. Really, though, it's looks pretty good. Kind of screw around and make it too large, and kind of play around with the offset and whatnot. I just find this stuff kind of fun just to mess with. Really turned out, like I say, pretty well. Flip horizontal. There may be a setting somewhere that I could play with that would improve. I really feel like the frame rate should definitely be better. It's got to have something to do with, like I say, like it's recording and doing DFS Live and doing NVIDIA Broadcast actually uses the GPU a fair amount, so I can only assume that that's got something to do with it. And the camera frame rate might be limited somewhere. Like, let me try some other stuff. This might mess up my OBS window, I guess, now that I think about it. I probably shouldn't change that. I was going to say, some of these run at 30 and some of them run at 60, depending on your web camera. And sometimes that'll have a pretty good effect on whether or not this will run better. 2-pass mode. It's still running at like the same frame rate. And normally 2-pass knocks it down a lot. So for some reason, it's kind of capping itself somewhere. Weird. All right, so that worked out pretty well. Let me kill this here real quick, and then I guess we'll have like kind of a final comment sort of thing. We'll go over like what you want to do, I guess, if you wanted to start another model. So give me 1 second, and I'll close out of this. It occurred to me that partly why it's probably not performing quite as well is that actually, I think when Deepface, when the PyTorch trainer is just paused like it is, it still has like a certain portion of the GPU resources are allocated to it. So even though it's not training actively, it's like those GPU cores are already allocated off, and that's probably got something to do with the performance as well. The only way I'll be able to test that is like to basically stop training and doing some things, and then I can try it without and see if the frame rate improves that much. But the model looks good, so I'm happy with the result, even though it's, like I say, I can't get quite the frame rate that I'd want for this particular video. So let me go back to the PyTorch trainer again. Incidentally, if the folder is not named PyTorch build, the software doesn't work. It has something to do with like certain dependencies within some of the software, or some of the like DLLs and stuff inside. If it doesn't know what folder it's in, it won't run. So don't change the name of the main folder. Okay, so what do we want to do? If you wanted to start a new model, what you could do is there's a couple different things. Like sometimes what I'll do is something like this. Like for example, I'd name a folder out here, Keanu Reeves. That way, like I can come back and use him again quickly if I want to. I would cut and paste these out. Actually, I probably, sorry, let me end training this real quick. So we'll exit out of that. All right, so it's exiting and saving. Probably a good idea to do that before I just go cutting and pasting some folders. All right, now I'm done. With that, I can close that out. All right, so these have all been saved and whatnot. I can cut them out. I can paste them into here in a Keanu Reeves folder. And then in the workspace, I can start a new thing. So like here, if I wanted to do another one, I'd just say again, model. And if I was going to do like another male actor, I could just, this is like, again, the male, like the tiny little 3000 image male RTM face set. I could go ahead and put that back in the main workspace folder. For the model, like I could reuse the same files again. So I could copy these over and just not use the inner AB and not use the GAN files because you have to make new ones every time you make a new model. So I could copy those over. I wouldn't cut and paste, I'd copy and paste them. So I'd go back to the workspace, paste those in there. And after that, all you have to do is get like a new source face set and you can start training something else. So again, like depending on what you want to do, if you wanted to do a female character, you know, we've got the female RTM, or you could use the mini RTM, which is kind of good. It's got more women in it than men, which is partly why I made one of each. Just somebody was suggesting to me, I think it was World X, again, the guy that did the update to the DirectX 12 Deepfake Live, he was suggesting that he liked using an all-female RTM face set for female characters, and conversely, I made one for guys just to see how that worked. I think it did well for Keanu. I think he turned out really good, and it seems like it works really well. So obviously that functions. Whether or not it really matters if there's like a mix of men and women, I think it just more cares about like facial expression. So I can't be sure that that really matters. I know it helps if you're doing like beards and like stubble to have representation of that in the destination face set. So if you wanted to do like Obi-Wan Kenobi with a little, like a young Obi-Wan, but he's got a little facial hair or something, it helps to have images in the destination face set. Like I thought about maybe doing like an RTM face set with bearded guys, so I could train, you know, source actors that have beards against that and see how well they can come out. Facial hair is something that Deepfake Lab and subsequently the PyTorch trainer still doesn't do a very good job with. So I think that that's kind of covered it pretty well. Kind of to recap, download all your software, extract the PyTorch trainer, you know, extract out Deepfake Lab, you know, get your face sets in there, get your model files in there using the model files supplied by Ramateus, however you pronounce his name, or you can use your own model files. And so I would suggest you use one that's already been pre-trained like this, or there are other ones out there. I guess maybe later I can supply and upload some more to my Google Drive. I'm just again using this one because it's something that most people will be able to use. It doesn't use a lot of VRAM. Someone with like an 8 gigabyte GPU should be able to run this on batch 4, whereas some of the more VRAM heavy models that I use, people that don't have at least probably like 20 gigs or more of VRAM are going to even be able to run them. So there's not a lot of point giving them out if only like 5 to 10% of the audience can utilize them. If people request it, I do have like some 384 res models that are pretty good, both SAE, HD, and AMP. If people want to mess around with that stuff. And again, remember that the paid version versus the free version of the PyTorch build. The PyTorch build free version is limited to 448 anyway. If you do go the route of paying for it, which I think is over $300 US, it's like 250 UK, and I think there's taxes and whatnot, so it ends up being like 313 bucks. If you do want to pay for it, you can do unlimited resolution, but of course that requires you have hardware that's capable of doing that. So that said, I think everything pretty much good to go. If anybody has questions, obviously ask them in the comment section below. I'll have links to, of course, the software in the Google Drive. I'll link in like my DFM folder. So if you want to play around with different, different models with the Deepfake Live, you can do that. I've got, I don't know, like 60 or more different characters that I've got in there at some point or another. I've got, some of them are higher res, some of them are lower, but you can play around with those. And because you have the DirectX 12 build that was updated by WorldX, even the more recent ones I've done that are like 448 or above in the PyTorch trainer, you should still be able to use with this, again, with this software. So let me know if you have questions in the comment section below. Hopefully this has been informative and useful to people. Thanks for watching, and I'll do another video here again in the near future. Take care, everybody, and have a great one.